Hey, Blue Table fans! Today I'm going to talk about my Necrons army. I went to a grand tournament this last weekend. I'm really super excited about it. And hopefully going to go to another one in June. I spent several months preparing my army list and trying different things. And this is what I ended up bringing. And it was pretty good. You may or may not want to follow my advice because I did go 1-4, meaning I played 5 games and I lost 4 of them. But they weren't complete routes, and I think next time I'm going to end up doing a lot better. So I want to talk about some of the units and also talk about my advice for going to tournaments. First off, I absolutely love these Games Workshop cards that they provide. This thing here. It's kind of a must-buy, unfortunately. You could just have a cheat sheet telling you what everything is, but I found when you're under the clock and you really just need to have things available, it's good to have these. And I usually have dice in one hand or I keep the cards in the other hand, and I'm kind of, during downtime or when my opponent's making their moves or whatever, I'm looking through them to think of which ones will be useful. And what I might do, like to remind me to do quantum deflection on something, I might actually just take the card and lay it face down next to that model to remind me to do this on them. And you can also put them on there, you know, even if you decide later that you don't want to do that. So anyway, 40K really is the game of remembering things, and these cards do help you remember how everything goes. Okay, I also got the Pariah Nexus kit, not only to get this really super cool Chronomancer model. Yeah, we're going to be talking about this unit. But also these things, which I turned into reminder markers. So like this means a 5-up invulnerable save. This is My Will Be Done, which is +2 to hit. This means a unit advanced. This one is a morale reminder. Get it? Yella. And so forth. I'm going to do a few more now that I've played like a lot more games. First off, let's talk about protocols. And what you do for the Necrons is before the game starts, you choose the 6 protocols in the order that you want. And since there's only 5 turns, one of them ultimately is dropped. So you can write them down, but you can also use these cards and flip it over and you make a deck. So at the top of my turn, I remember to give myself a command point, and I remember to turn over the command protocol. So I would say out loud to my opponent, I have a noble on the table, and you need to have one in order to use these. This is a model I use for my Necron Overlord. I know it's a special character, but I really like this model. And the other guy actually has, the one that comes in the Indomitus kits, he has a tachyon arrow. And in fact, I think I can show that to you. And since my guy doesn't have that, I want it to be what you see is what you get. So here we go. And by the way, this model is awesome. Incidentally, and by the way, this video is for Necron players. The Overlord comes on a 25mm base and a 40mm base, so you can use either of them. Since he does have auras, it's slightly more advantageous to put them on the 40mm, and that's really what most of them come on anyway. So you'll notice this Xandrek model, even though I think he officially comes on a 25, because I'm using him as my Overlord, I put him on a 40mm base, because that is the correct base size for him. And, okay, so talking about the command protocols, normally what I do is I do Eternal Guardian on the first turn, and here's why. Because a lot of armies have first turn charges, especially if you take the aggressive expansionists, Circumstance of Awakening. It's like an army-wide power that gives you a free move at the beginning of the game. So if you're doing that, you're usually moving up the board. And so you're gonna get charged the first turn, and that's okay. Now if your opponent has the first turn, top of the first turn, then this won't have taken effect yet. So it's a tough call which one to do. I usually take Eternal Guardian first. I do Directive 2, and then that gives you a 5-up Overwatch, or a +1 attack in close combat. Then for the second one, I usually take, nope, not Conquering Tyrant. Yes, Conquering Tyrant. This allows you to fall back and shoot, although it is at -1. That is an enormous deal for your ranks of Necron Warriors, because your opponent looks at them, he starts drooling, oh, I'm going to go beat these Necron Warriors in close combat, and guess what he finds out? They're not so easy to put down with the reanimation protocols, resurrection orb, all of that. And then with this directive, you basically move out of combat, and you can do like different, you can reposition, and then you can still shoot and still charge back in. It's incredible. The protocols are awesome. They give you a lot, they're not as powerful as the Space Marine ones, but they give you a lot of flexibility in the order that you do them. Now I usually do Sudden Storm as my third one, which is +1 inch movement. But as I get more experience, I may change that up. There's a lot of other things in here, and there's a lot to them. So yeah, I keep them in order, and yep, I keep them in order. Is that right? Is that what I do? Yeah, that's right. I do the fallback one on turn. So on turn 2, once they've kind of engaged all these big blocks of Necron Warriors, then they can all start to fall back and shoot, and that is really puts you at a great advantage. All right, and by the way, I play a regular Necron army. When I went to this tournament, there were a couple of others, but none of them had lots of Necron Warriors. One of them had 3 Khatans, which is a tough list to beat, and the other one had all Destroyer cult stuff in it. So, all right, let's see. Other advice for tournaments? Oh, I got this. This is a little tracker for command points and victory points. But usually my opponents, they were just tracking it on their phones, and they were doing it for both of us. And since I didn't care, I just didn't really keep track of it very much. But in future tournaments, I'm definitely going to keep better track of my things. But this tracker turned out isn't as helpful as you think. It's really just for the command points that I keep dice in here, and I wind them down as I do my command points. At a tournament, or any game actually, narration is very important. Say out loud what it is that you're doing. So I would say, okay, I'm rolling down my command points from 9 to 8, and I'm using the command reroll stratagem, like that. And know the names. Don't just be like, oh, I use the thing that does this. And it's like, your opponent doesn't know that, doesn't know your list very well. So it's just courtesy in my estimation. Okay, let's take a look at some of the units, because I am going to definitely change my list before July. I am almost 100% going to play Necrons. I do have Tzeentch Demons in the wings, but to get good at something, you have to give it some time. You can't just change your mind every 2 months. And like my friend Rich, he's been playing Orcs for 7 years, and it's taken that long for him to really get good at them, and also become a much better player. So the Necron Warriors, I really like them. They're in units of 20. I noticed when I was going up against really rock-hard opponents that they wouldn't get a lot of reanimation because they would kill the entire unit. Orc boys are nothing to be trifled with. You have to cut them down to below 20. A unit of 30, so 30 of them getting in here with maximum attacks, 6 attacks each, is 180 attacks. They end up hitting 90 times, and they end up wounding like 30 or 40 times, and the unit just disappears. And it's crazy. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Orc boys are absolutely nuts. I hope they keep them the same amount of powerful, because 90 orc boys, I'd say 80 or 90 orc boys is the backbone of an orc army list. Now, yes, so the Necron Warriors, how they win is they have objective secured, but with the, I can't remember, it's like the Conquerors or something like that. It's, oh, actually, I can just look it up in my rulebook. By the way, one problem I had at this tournament is I didn't have everything memorized about my army, so I ended up looking, I had to thumb through my book like a jarg, so absolutely many times, and it lost me a lot of time. It's really not great. Like right now, I'm looking for this thing. I don't know exactly how it is. Okay, Dynastic. Here it is in the book. Dynastic Traditions, Eternal Conquerors. These are the ones I use. And these are kind of the standout ones. People kind of roll their eyes. They're like, yeah, of course you took those. Units with this code have the objective secured ability. If a model in such a unit already has this ability, the model counts as one additional model when determining control of an objective marker. This is also known as double obsec, and I don't think anything else in the game has it. I don't think anything else in the game has an ability where every single thing in the army is objective secured. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. And then the Relentlessly Expansionist, you can take a normal move before the game. So, and by the way, that's before you roll who goes first. That's really important. So if you use it to move up the board, guess what? You're probably going to get first turn charged. But if you see that your opponent, you do get to do it after everybody's deployed. So if you get to see that your opponent has a lot of those things that can get in first turn charges, then you can just move back. So it's really helpful. And so my advice to you Necron players is don't necessarily just go up the board. It's great to get on all these objectives, but if it's turn 3 and they've wiped everybody out because you just walked into the jaws of death, then it didn't really help you, did it? So sometimes you want to stay still, not use it at all. Sometimes you want to reposition. Sometimes you want to move back. So that's the 4 different options. Go forward, go back, stay still, or just reposition things. Like just get them into better lines of sight and stuff like that. And that can surprise your opponent too. That they'll set up, they'll be like, oh, this giant gun battery, doesn't have line of sight. And then, oh, whoops, now it does. Okay. So that's how I run it, and so the Warriors are great for holding objectives. I didn't use them very well. I'm going to do a whole different video on what I call reanimation shenanigans. So when they kill things, you can reposition the models. And let me tell you, in 9th edition, repositioning is absolutely hugely important. It's really amazing. Yeah, there's tons of shenanigans there. Generally, though, when you're reanimating, think, do I want to be... Because sometimes people just go, they use it as invulnerable save. They're just like, oh, 4 guys made it, so they're just in the same place. And that's not how it works. I advise any Necrons player, especially if you're using a lot of Necron Warriors, I recommend minimum 60. By the way, they're easy to acquire right now because of Indomitus. A lot of people got it, put them all together, and then they grew bored of it. So now there's all these assembled Necron Warriors out there, and they can be had on the cheap if you look around enough. So anyway, go through the process. Take off the casualties, like move them down. Choose where you want to take them off of. That's part of the strategy too. And then pick them up with the reanimation. Say, okay, 2 guys come back. Then think, okay, I'm going to put them here and here. And you can creep onto an objective. You can surround an enemy. You can even, if they're attacking you like this in a front, you can even often, if a guy's in close combat here, you can reanimate on the other side of them. So don't forget that little trick too, as long as you're in coherency of 2 guys. By the way, watch out for that, because I spread a whole conga line out, and I had 2 trios at either end, but my opponent killed one of the trios, and according to how, what is it called? That last phase, like coherency, I had to basically I had to take off the entire, I had to take off 14 guys until I got down to the last 5. that didn't have to be within coherency of 2 other models. I'll probably talk more about that later too. So anyway, watch your coherency. You do have to move them up kind of in blobs and make sure each guy is within 2 other guys, and like really keep that coherency tight. So, okay, let's talk about the different units. First off, Necron Warriors with Gauss Reapers, the one that is 12-inch range, are fantastic. -2, 1 damage. If you're getting 40 shots, that is, guys, that is pretty good. And so 40 shots usually ends up with about 32 hits. You're usually wounding on 4-ups, so you've got 20. They have to make 20 saves at -2, and that will usually kill a whole unit. By the way, don't forget that these are assault weapons, and you can advance with them. Advancing is a big deal with these guys because it gives these 12-inch Gauss Reapers really a long range. So with that first move of up to 6 inches, and by the way, these guys only move 5. So the first move isn't a 6-inch move. It's a normal move of up to 6 inches. So if something has less, and a lot of things in the Necron's army do, then you can only move 5 inches. However, if you placed everything correct, you'll have an Overlord nearby, and he will be able to, he has the Relentless March aura in 6 inches, and you can get a lot of coverage with that big pie plate. It gives them +1 inch to move. So in the initial movement, they could move 6 inches. So they move 6 inches, and then you move them again, that's 12. And if you advance and then shoot, you basically have the whole unit on average is going to be in range on turn 1. And that is a huge amount of mobility. Like if you use your pre-game movement from the Dynastic code and the Circumstance of Awakening, if you use that 6-inch movement to get up and you roll the first turn, you're going to be blasting with all of these guys on the first turn. It's crazy. So don't forget the advance on your Necron Warriors. Now, the problem is if you advance with an assault weapon, you get -1 to hit. Yeah, but do you? Because each of these Overlords here, I have a Catacomb Command Barge, effectively an Overlord, and then this guy, actually an Overlord. They can give him my will be done. This is my little marker for it. And so I just put that there, and that's +1 to hit. So that gives them, normally they're at 2 up to hit. Then they're back, if they advance, they're back down to 3 up to hit. Now you wrap in the Treyarch Stalker that gets the positional relay ability, meaning if it just hits with something, then targeting relay. You get to re-roll 1s. So you can possibly be up in somebody's face with a 2 or 3 up to hit, re-rolling 1s with these relatively powerful weapons. So it's potent. And never mind that this thing, the Treyarch Stalker, actually blows stuff up too. And so the Treyarch Stalker's awesome. By the way, I really love my color scheme. Let's see if I can show you my guys a little bit. So there we go. I love this figure. And the other thing is, as far as I can tell, it is legal to just put your foot troops underneath here. Like this doesn't require a base, and you can just, I haven't found anything in the rules that say you have to like keep things out of the shadow of something. And so it's weird. I'd like to really actually find out the actual rules behind that. Like if you charged, could you put this leg inside of an enemy unit? Like, I don't know. I'm interested in the permutations of this model and its configurations. In 9th edition, positioning is so important that the actual profile, the physical shape of the model matters. Okay, let's move on. So Warriors, definitely my MVPs. I don't think I'm getting rid of them anytime soon. I really like the units. And the other thing is, that's Necrons. Like, this is a Necron army. There's a lot of warriors in it. And quite frankly, they're not bad. I don't feel like when I'm getting Necron Warriors, I'm not like, oh, I wasted points, it's a tax or whatever. In fact, from my very first army, where I had a unit and then I had 2 units of 10, just to sort of fill the slots, I've actually added more Necron Warriors because they're definitely a winning proposition. Uh-oh, this is bad. I have an artist coming soon. Hold on a second. Okay. Okay. I have, in fact, hold on. Hold on. I'm working on something. I'm juggling some things here. Okay. So, okay, let's talk about the different units. Treyarch Stalker, great. Love him. He is a little split in his abilities. He has ranged attacks. So he has a 20, I take the heat ray. The heat ray is 24-inch range. It shoots 2 shots. It gives the targeting relay ability. I would use this little gold square thing for that. And that rerolls other units that shoot at the unit that got hit. It only needs to be hit. Gives them reroll 1s, which is a nice bonus. The heat ray will actually peel off wounds of things. It has multiple wounds. The Treyarch Stalker also has, as an alternate, it has a very powerful flamer, a 2d6 flamer. And that helps in many ways too. If he's charged, he can do the flamer as Overwatch. He can do it into close combat because he's a vehicle. And he's no slouch in close combat. He has 3 attacks with Stalker Forelimbs, which is, I'd say, kind of Thunderhammer-ish in its profile. But it only gets 3 attacks. At 140 points, the Treyarch Stalker is pretty good. I was thinking of taking 2 Doom Stalkers. I literally just didn't have a second one, so I ended up taking this. There's another strategy, there's another economy to Warhammer 40k, and that is knowing things. So if I took 2 Doom Stalkers, my opponent would only need to know what one thing does, because it would all be the same. But when you take 2 things, your opponent doesn't know what they do. And I believe in narration and to be fair about things, because it's not your opponent's job to know everything about your army. On the other hand, you do give your opponent an army list at the beginning. Usually I just narrate what something does, and I feel that that's fair enough. But by diversifying your army, it does make it a little more difficult to play against. Okay, let's keep going. Now I want to do, so the Treyarch Stalker really was a good player on the team. I wouldn't call him an MVP like the Warriors, who are staple. This guy could come and go. I think it would be okay. He also does fulfill one more vital role, is the Warriors can't just go up on their own. They need support. They need melee support for when something charges into them, you can get in there. Also, this is a canoptic unit, so there's a stratagem that allows this guy to heroically intervene. And so that can be a little bit of a nasty surprise. If you're moving them up with your Warriors, just keep them kind of creeping around the back there, and if somebody charges the Warriors, you can be like, okay, heroic intervention, and you just move this leg up 3 inches, and he's in. He's in like Flynn. So I actually do, now that I'm thinking about it and all the games I played, the Treyarch Stalker is amazing. And he's also has good defenses too. With quantum shielding, he can only be wounded on minimum 4-up and has a 5-up invulnerable save. Plus regenerates from living metal like everything else. So Treyarch Stalker is really a cool figure. The Crypto Thralls, let's get back to them. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about the Crypto Thralls now. An important part of making your army list is your backfield. You have to seal off your backfield with 9-inch radius things to keep people from deep striking in. This is a real pain. Most armies have these like units of 5, Scourges, Commandos, or whatever that can squeak into those tiny little open areas. So you have to seal off your backfield. And quite frankly, the Necrons don't have a lot of great things to do that. For me, I had 3. The Doomstalker and then 2 units of 2 Crypto Thralls each. And they did a pretty good job. They don't have great coverage, but they have good coverage. The Crypto Thralls are amazing. They're durable with toughness 5, a 3-up save, living metal. They've got their eyeball beams, which Scouring Eye it's called, and they have 12-inch range, and I do believe it is strength 6. See how I didn't know that? This is where I would lose time trying to look up what my guys did. And I don't really have my army list down yet. Yeah, it's only strength 5. Strength 5 -2, 1. Oh, it's the same stat line as these things, except it's pistol too. So they can fire and melee. So these guys are basically perfect at fending off those deep strikers of like 5 weak guys. These guys can handle those guys, and they're only 40 points. So they're really nice. An LVP is this guy, the Royal Warden. A problem with the Warriors is they get slogged in close combat and then all their firepower goes away. The Royal Warden at a 9-inch range can give them the ability to fall back and then also shoot and charge in the same turn. It's called adaptive strategy. And I absolutely love that. But in practice, the Royal Warden just ends up, like holding back objectives and dealing with things in the backfield. So it's a tough call. I may or may not keep him. All right, I'm going to conclude this video and bust it into a part 2.